Hi everyone. I decided to do this outside today again. It was really nice the last time. And today I want to share with you, it's like a continuation from the last one. And basically, I was sharing with you a little bit about like the conditioning, bringing human design to the question here, and also focusing on the being a manifester. And I'm going to share another example with you that I feel is quite clear as well about how the conditioning and some things of us working and acting and behaving in a way that is not aligned to who we are and to our energy, how it truly works, and how it's meant to operate in this world, what can actually lead to diseases in the long run. I want to keep this one shorter, so to share with you like many traditions show how our throat is connected to our womb, and especially for women, how like singing or again speaking our truth and really expressing our emotions and our feelings through our voice is so important, so key for the health of our womb. And in the last video I spoke a bit more about the throat as like the motor center for manifestors, and how usually that is so conditioned because it's something like so powerful for a manifestor and so key that usually is quite conditioned. And another thing that is also really conditioned for a manifestor is the sacral center. And this is quite curious because of the connection that the throat has with the womb, right? And for manifestors, the throat being so key. And then also the sacral area, the sacral energy center, is something that the manifestor doesn't have defined. So what means is that energy is not consistent in our body, and usually it's where we get a lot of conditioning from the other types, especially because it's something that defines the 70% of the population, as I explained in the last video. That sacral center is what mostly defines that part of the population as having this constant energy of making things happen, and like constant, consistent energy day by day, mostly like in general terms. And the manifestor doesn't have that. And of course, growing up, we see many people, like most of the people, acting like in a consistent way, and we feel like kind of we are weird or wrong because we don't feel like it, like we feel it's something that goes against us, that is not natural for us. But at the same time, we kind of learn that that means that there's something wrong with us, because we should keep the pace with everyone else and just behave as everyone else in that sense and have a consistent level of energy. And because we don't have that sacral area of our bodies defined, like it doesn't have consistent energy, and it's actually what defines us as a manifestor is the motor center and the sacral area not defined. And as I said, because most of the population has it, and it's something that we see nowadays, like through the fast pace of the world somehow and how things are defined, they are not really considering this different energy that the manifestor has and how it moves and is meant to move in the world. So this area ends up being an area that ends up suffering a lot of conditioning because of that, because we don't really understand why we work differently or why we like are feeling lazy compared to the other people around us, especially if we are surrounded by generators and manifesting generators that represent the 70% of the population. So because we are just 9% of the population, and then of course the other two types that also don't have this sacral area defined are the other like 21% of the population, as I referred, and it's not as common, right, to find them. We kind of end up wanting to behave normally and to fit in society, and this area is something that gets really conditioned by that. And funny enough, after me like being in this process for quite a few years and healing my throat, and then having this incident happening last year. It's quite funny because I've been deconditioning as much as I can this sacral center, this need to feel like I'm keeping the pace with everyone else and kind of having this consistent level of energy. It's actually interesting how when I changed my whole life, my body asked me for so much rest that I had no idea, and it was a bit weird for me. I would tend to see it as wrong, or something was wrong with me, or tending it like to repress it and to try to keep it up, you know. But what was actually natural to me was to slow down and to relax and to rest more. So, and the truth is, when I do and when I allow myself to do it, it's quite of a change, right? Because it's like so many years, like decades of behaving in a certain way and learning that from a really young age. It takes a while to decondition and to really be aware of what we are doing, and that we are getting into the past way of behaving, and like being aware of that and trying really to shift and to be more present, to behave in accordance to what our body really needs and wants to function properly and to be healthy. So it's so interesting how last year I had this cyst burst in my womb. I never really had anything shown in that area, like I was always quite healthy, so I was not really worrying about it. And the truth is that the when I started doing this work with the dreams and really processing my fears, and all of this release started happening, it was a few months after that, like 6 7 months after that, that this burst of the cyst happened. So I was already deconditioning without knowing initially, because I just got to know human design in like 3 years ago, but I was already doing it naturally. And it really feels like my body was just cleansing all these last decades that were with me, being almost always and 200%, especially in my last few years working. So I was like in a really, really, really fast pace. It's like I didn't know how to stop, how to slow down, because again, it's like it's an open area that we have in our bodies. When we get conditioned, we overdo it. Like we don't just do how other types do it. We end up overdoing it, and that's what I was doing for a long, long, long time, many years. And of course, it's like now, since I started slowing down, it's like my body was starting to decondition that, and doing the work with my dreams and regaining this expression, right? Like starting to express my emotions, express my voice, and starting to have a voice in my dreams, and all of that all is connected. How my womb like had this cyst burst, and it really felt like a big, big, big release, big cleansing. And it's so interesting because it's these two main centers that are so key for manifestors. One, because it's one that we really have defined it, and is our motor center. And the other one, because it's usually one that has a lot of conditioning, because it's not meant to be a key one for us, because it's not defined in us and it's not an energy that we have consistently. I find this really, really interesting, because while I go about learning more about these things, and at the same time seeing what's going on with my body in real time, everything starts to click into place and starts making so much sense. And I can see how the conditioning, and again, it was for such a long period of time. It's like during these last few years, my body started to really cleansing all the conditioning that it has gone through most of its life, most of my life. And this is like another example of how our bodies, when we don't slow down, when we don't listen to them, They actually make us slow down sooner or later, we liking it or not, because they are talking to us, they are really speaking to us and showing us what we need, what we really need. So if we listen, if we go a bit more slowly to be able to understand ourselves, to trust our bodies and our inner knowing, to really believe that there's something that's been communicating to us, here again, it's a lot about trusting ourselves, because we feel like we might be different in a certain way comparing to others, and we feel like there's something wrong with us. We end up questioning ourselves more than actually trusting ourselves and seeing it as something powerful, something that is different and has a power to it, instead of seeing it as something wrong with us. What's right about this? About the situation, about the way I feel, about what my body is telling me, and again, bringing us to the strategy and authority that human design talks about, that brings us into our bodies. So we really, really trust our bodies and what our bodies want to create and express in this world. And again, this is quite actually connected to the sacral center, as the creation, like the creative energy, is mainly connected to our sacral center, is where we have our creative power, is where women and men as well, like, we create lives with this area of our bodies. And so an imbalance is there, really show how we are misusing our energies, not expressing our creativity enough, or misusing our energy and overriding it and overusing it, draining ourselves in the process and draining our bodies in the process, and creating disease along the way, sooner or later. This is what I wanted to share with you today. I hope you enjoy it and that you can take it for yourself and see how it applies to you, and how you can take that information to guide you on your own journey, and maybe go in depth into your human design if you feel called to, and really make as much as you can from your life, because that's what we are here to do, right? Thank you so much, and I will see you in the next one.